Hi everybody, welcome to the live stream here for tonight. I just looked up and realized that some of my stuff isn't up on the screen. If you could give me a thumbs up to let me know that the sound is okay, that would be great. Just to let me know that I'm not broadcasting to dead air. Let's see, we are working on the Rebel Strawberry tonight. And this is a Rebel blending technique. It's kind of a baby Rebel because I go kind of crazy in some of my Rebel blends where I really run weird colors from one into another. So if you're not familiar with it, standard Copic blending is a light and a medium and a dark, all of the same color. Thank you, Melissa, for the thumbs up there to let me know that you can hear everything. And Nancy, you too. Thank you. So a standard blend, let's just move this out of the way and I'll put some markers over here. So a standard blend is probably a dark, a medium, and a light, all three from the same family. Easy peasy, this is what you're used to. The problem is that when I look at real objects in real life, so take our strawberry here. When I look at that strawberry, I don't see this color in the dark area, and I don't see this color in the light area. So when you color with these standard blends, it tends to result in something that looks a little bit artificial, a little bit cartoonish is the word that comes to mind. It is so simplified that the color feels wrong. And that's because this is a beginner technique. This is designed to get you in the process of blending those markers together, working with color gradients. But I don't think anybody ever intended for people to be working with light, medium, dark combinations their whole life. And honestly, a lot of people do. But you're here because you see something slightly different along with me, and something that I'm saying resonates with you. So when I look at that strawberry, as the color moves around the side there, it's no longer this kind of a nice dark red. It is murky, it is muddy, it's a desaturated red there. And so what I tend to do is I use an underpainting technique to pop color underneath that to create something that is a little darker than standard. So here's one of those light, medium, and dark blends. And this is Strathmore. Red does not like to blend on Strathmore. It really doesn't like to blend on Hammermill, but I'm not going to get the greatest of blends here right on this particular sample right here. So we've got that light, medium, and dark blending combination. And again, that's not what I see in the strawberry. What I see in the strawberry over there on the side, and it might even be a darker violet than that, I see something that is taking that color and making it muddy. So when I talk about muddiness, and let me tighten up the camera here. You see me do this week after week and in so many classes. I am talking about, I'm looking for a pen here so that I can draw on this. I'm talking about the color that is right in here where I've got that violet. So this was V25, and the color on top of that is R27. So it's V25 underneath R27, and this is underpainting, and it's borrowed directly from Old Master's method of classical oil painting. So when we're talking about Rembrandt, this is the kind of thing that he did. Vermeer, all of those greats there, they were working with this type of a method where they're painting first, not necessarily in purple. Usually they were painting in sepia. There's lots of colors that you can use the underpainting method for. But for that strawberry, and I can't draw it with that pen because it's not Copic safe. For that strawberry, here's that shape. What I'm seeing is a lot of purple or desaturation over on this side. And then that red goes over the top. So there we go. See how I'm getting that shady, murky kind of red color there? Now I know a lot of people will use like an R89 or an R59, but those colors aren't even shady and murky enough to simulate what we're seeing there. We have to capture that value over there if we're going to capture realism in the strawberry. But here's the other thing. Not everything is just all 100% red. So if I get rid of this strawberry and I pull up this strawberry, I can't color that strawberry with 3 reds. The color on this strawberry is amazing. It's beautiful. Look at all the way down at the point there. That strawberry is, that kind of looks like a green. I pulled out a YG21, but I think it's even more greenier than that. It might be like a YG, do they make an O2? Not sure. I have a headache tonight, so I can't really move my head much. It's kind of like on the verge of a migraine, so just hang with me there if I look a little bit stiff here. Try not to move my head too much. Okay, so I'm seeing something that's really green down there at the tip, and then that blends into red. And there is nothing in the Copic literature that prepares you to blend from green into red. That is a Rebel blend. And I teach this in my beginner blending classes. It's like the finale when we get to the end of the beginner 12-week course. We kind of start working with these wild and crazy blends that mimic what we see in real life. And that is a Rebel blend. It's moving from one weird color into another weird color. And it's a concept that I came up with because one of my students very early on was like, this isn't the way we're supposed to be blending. And I said, that's okay. We're being rebels. That's what we're doing. And that's where the name came from. It's a concept that I've been teaching for 20 years now, I think. And it was born out of absolute necessity because I just can't bear the idea of teaching you to color a beautiful strawberry like that with just this kind of a blend. It's just not going to cut it for us. So being aware of the amount of solvent that you have in the markers, that last number there really helps when we're looking at Rebel blends. So I've been kind of negligent in my studio here. I've been super busy recently. I picked out the markers ahead of time. I thought that I was going to pick here live on camera and show you how one comes together. But then I realized that odds are I'm going to come across a marker that isn't full enough to really be coloring. I need to refill like about 30 markers. And I just wanted to refill what we were using tonight. So I pulled out, it's been strawberry month, so I pulled out some strawberry-ish colors because in my classes we've had strawberries on the brain. I'll show you. We just finished coloring this image in another one of my classes. So yeah, and then there's more strawberries coming on Friday. It's just May is strawberry month here. So yeah, we're doing lots of berries, and that's why so many of my strawberry colors are low on ink, because I've just been cruising through these projects one after another. So I pulled these out ahead of time, but I'll swatch them down for you so that you can see where we're going. So this Rebel blend is starting with purple and it's moving all the way to green, which is pretty crazy, but it can be done. All right, so here is the V25 and we're using that as an underpaint. Here's R27. Going over the top of that, and see how we're getting 2 different shades of red out of one red marker. So V25 R27, and this isn't the only possible Rebel blend that you can use on a strawberry. It's just what I happen to have here tonight with some nice full markers. So this marker going over the top of this is now R14, and I'm switching from the 27 because this is a cool leaning red to a warm leaning red, because I want to pick up those warmer tones that I'm seeing in the strawberry. So I'm shifting families to get a different flavor from that red. Now I'm going to shift families again, going even warmer, but also lighter. And as we move lighter, we're moving into markers that contain more solvent. So this is R02. So see how I've shifted not one, but 2 steps lighter. I've got my coolish red. It has the R27 has some blue in it compared to the orangier R-teen and R02 families. And I'm really trying, I'm looking at that strawberry reference there, and I'm picking up those warmer tones that I see, especially up there at the top. See that R02 up at the top? It's really intense up there. Then I'm going to move to R01 because I need a marker that has lots of solvent in it. This is my bridge color. So R02 and then R01. And I'm going to put a little asterisk next to that. From there, I'm shifting over. I got to get myself over to green. So I'm hopping into a YR color. This is YR31. And then from there, I'm moving into my green. So here comes that YG21, and that's giving me that color at the end of the strawberry. And if I put down a little bit of extra YG21 at the very start of that blend, see how that gives it, Copic is buildable. So I've given myself just one green marker, but with 2 layers down there at the base, I've really given myself a more green, intense flavor. So see how we're working? We're starting from violet. We went to a warm red, and then or a cool red, and then we warm it up. We get to kind of a golden color. And then that YG21 is down there on the end. And this is that crazy kind of blend that I see going on in the strawberry there. Do you see that too? Okay, now I put a little asterisk next to the R01. And I actually could put an asterisk next to the YR31 because in every Rebel blend, there is going to be a color that's kind of in that middle transition zone. And you want these colors to be high solvent colors because if my blend isn't working out so hot for me, I can come back with that R01 and just give it another hit. And I'm swishing back and forth. This is called a swish stroke. A flick stroke is when you have a definite starting point and then it kind of makes a point at the end. But a swish stroke is done more on the point, and there is no stop or start point. It's just swishing back and forth as if you're broom sweeping a room. So with these transition colors, I can come back and feed that blend just a little bit more solvent, and that often helps the transition, especially if I were doing something like this is a G marker here outright. Sometimes that transition into the full color can be a little bit of a bugger. So it helps to give yourself a couple of markers that have that nice juicy amount of solvent to it. Now I'm not going to do this blend. This is actually one of the leaf colors, but I was showing you how I can keep going into that. Now this blend kind of runs almost rainbow type chromatically down the rainbow order, but Rebel blends don't have to do that. Quite often I am running red directly into green or purple. I love to run purple directly into green. That's a beautiful combination. And you just have to know that the colors that are in the middle zone, now this one, because we're kind of in that rainbow order, the colors in the middle zone stay pretty looking. But if I were to take this G24 and Rebel blend it into V22, because these are complementary colors. They're sitting on the opposite side of the color wheel. That blend in the transition zone, if I were to just take this color here, the color that's right in there, and if I were to sample it with an eyedropper, it's going to be a funky brown weird color. And you just have to know that when you are clashing these complements, that sometimes the color that forms in the transition zone, if you isolate it and just look at just that, I mean, greenish purple is not a pretty color, but as part of the whole entire blend, it's gorgeous. So you have to have that context in there. And I think when I teach people to Rebel blend, a lot of times they hyper focus on what is that color that I'm making in between there. And if it's a color that doesn't have a name, like we don't have a name for greenish purple, and they hyper focus on that and they think, well, it's not pretty, so I'm not doing it right. No, you're doing it right. You just have to look at the color in context, because in context, greenish purple is gorgeous, and sometimes it's exactly what you need. So this is kind of my practice sheet here. Let's just run through that combination and I'll show you what I pulled out. So in those leaves on the strawberry, not this particular strawberry, but the other one, let me pull that one back up. So in this one, I'm looking at those leaves and I saw YG67. And then I'm switching over to G24 because all of the YGs that were in the right value range for the lighter green, they were a little bit too yellowish for me. They all had, I was trying to get away from the typical YG03 that I usually do. And I was trying to do something that was that kind of softer, more mellow green. So this is a good combination. And then I'm realizing, okay, well, I need those violets that go underneath for the underpaint. And so I grabbed that V25 from over here, but I also pulled out V22 and V20, and I've got these sitting here by my side. So this is my green leaf blend, and then these are just my alternate colors that I might need, especially as I'm shading into an area that I've colored with the peachy tones instead of the sharp reds. And then that blending combination, the Rebel blend that I'm doing, is V25. I might do V22. It just depends on which one looks stronger. And then the R27, R14, R02, R01, YR31, and YG21. And that's a big, long blend. Rebel blends tend to be lots and lots of markers. But remember, I use the same markers over and over again. Honestly, I could probably get rid of, I'm not going to say 2/3 of my marker collection, but I could get rid of a good 40 or 50 markers and never notice it. And then I could manage along just fine with even half of that. But it's nice to have those colors if you need them. Rebel blends, they do tend to be a little bit longer, but these are markers that I use all the time. I use these V20s underneath a lot of things for really nice underpainting. So that's what I've got going here tonight. I am still working in that same notebook. So this is the Stillman and Burn Zeta series, and I've got that, I will move my head there. Ugh. So I've got the Stillman and Burn, and it's Zeta, so Z-E-T-A. Stillman and Burn makes an alpha and a beta and a gamma, and they have all different types of notebooks. The one that works the best with Copic marker that I've found is the Zeta one. So that's what I have here. If you are not interested in working in a notebook, I work most of the time on Strathmore Bristol in the 300 series, but the 400 works well too. And you want that in the smooth finish. You don't want any texture. The vellum has a little bit of bumpiness to it, and the markers don't do so well with that. So you want Bristol in the smooth surface, or if you're a beginner, or even if you're not a beginner, if you're just 100% focused on the marker and you don't want to do any colored pencil, then Express It is my recommended paper. Express It does not take a lot of colored pencil though, and I tend to use a little bit too much colored pencil for the Express It. So I teach all of my beginners and a lot of my intermediate students, I teach them on the Express It blending card. But then as soon as we start to add more and more colored pencil, I move everybody over to the Bristol now, and that's what I'm using. Zeta is the Stillman and Burn here is really just for sketchbooks. I kind of had a hard time because Strathmore Bristol doesn't make a notebook that I'm aware of. And even though Expressit has made notebooks in the past, they don't make one now. So I was looking for something that everybody could get their hands on. So, you know, here is, that was 2 months ago, and yep, still working in the same notebook. Tonight I'm going to try and do something just a little bit different because it bugs me to no end when I run a project off the edge of the page. See how close that is? I like to give myself margins, especially because I scan a lot of these projects. So I want to give myself some borders tonight. So I'm just pulling out, I quickly pulled out black washi tape. Now, I know that washi tape is not an uncommon thing for people, but I really encourage you to get some plain gray or white or black washi tape, because I know the sparkle stuff with little fairies or pumpkins or whatever, it's so cute, but that actually affects your color vision. Color is relative, so if you've got a rainbow washi tape on one side of your project, you're looking at the colors that you're coloring in contrast to that washi tape that's along the side there, and it is throwing off your color vision. So I really encourage you that if you are using washi tape, to either tape your projects down, or like me tonight, I'm just creating a nice little margin. And I'm just using the metal ruler to tear my paper nice and straight. I really encourage you to use some neutral washi tape. I know it's not as fun, but in the long run, it'll be better for it. All right, so I gave myself some borders, and now I'm going to draw the strawberry inside there. The strawberry is still going to have a white background. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't running my berry off the edge of the project. Just makes it a little bit easier when I go to scan it later. But then the other thing is that this paper is not the best blending paper. I mean, it works for marker, but it's not the greatest blending paper that I've ever used. So the bigger you make your image, the harder it's going to be to blend. If you see me looking over here to the side here, I am right now looking at my photo reference. So I'm looking at the heart-shaped berry. And then when we start to look at the colors a little bit more, I think I'm going to be switching over to the other berry. And I haven't quite decided how much Rebel blending to do on my final berry. I also I've been going back and forth with myself over this all day today. I have a tendency to take on too many challenges. And so I was thinking about putting a little berry blossom right along with it, but then my live streams turn into like these 3.5 hour things. So I think I'm not going to do I pretty much decided I'm not going to do the flower. Get cat and dog wars behind me. So I think I'm going to skip the flower tonight, but I'm probably going to include the flower in the digital stamp version. I just know that, you know, the more I try and color, and then along with this headache, the more I try and color, the longer this live stream is going to get. All right, so I've got the berry. I think I want to go diagonal because it'll fit nice in here. So if I do the point down here, maybe the top, because that'll give me room for the leaves to point up. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. All right. And it's kind of heart-shaped, but not totally. And I think I'm gonna make it a little wonky. So there's my berry shape. All right, so the center of the berry is about here. And I think I can see, I was looking at the photo up close, and I think there's a bit of a stem right here. Like there's some confusion going on that I can't quite tell what that is. So I'm just making an executive decision to put a stem in there. Like I can see the base of the stem, but I can't see the top of the stem. And I kind of wonder if this has been messed with in Photoshop, which almost all photos are now. All right, so popping up a leaf up there, and I think I'm gonna make it go that tall. Bring that in. I don't know what's up tonight, but I am drawing darker than I usually do. I suppose that's to your benefit though, because then you get to see a little bit more of what I'm doing. Okay, so got that. And remember, because I'm just sketching this out freehand, it's not going to match the photo exactly. Sometimes we make improvements, sometimes we change things just a little bit. Mine's a little fatter, but that gives me some more room for extra green in the image, and I'm good with that. All right, so come in. Kind of a weird shape going on there. I don't love that leaf in the back there. I think I'm going to edit out. There's something coming up there, but yeah, I don't want to spend the time to figure that out. There's like a shape that goes like this. There's a leaf, or sepal is what these are. There's a sepal that comes back over here and pops over here, but I don't like that. So I think I'm just gonna mimic the shape and kind of do that. Okay, so strawberries have these really interesting seeds, which aren't even really seeds. They're called achene, and basically you see them like, I think the most common achene is on a dandelion, you know, the puffballs that you blow, and there's like a little kind of pseudo seed there on the end there. That's another version of just like the strawberry seeds here. Basically a seed forms inside the fruit, and then the fruit has to like rot and split open. And so that's a seed. The achene are different. They grow on the outside of the fruit, not on the inside of the fruit. So there's a pattern to these guys, and kind of tossing around whether I should draw the pattern first, even though I'm going to color over the top of them. I think I'm going to draw the pattern first because it's going to affect the shape of the strawberry. All right, so I'm just kind of, so when I say drawing the pattern, what I mean is the line that they're kind of growing out of, or growing along. Hope that makes sense. And I really only need that outside edge. But I'll do a couple more just so that you understand what I'm doing. All right, so these are the diagonals of those berries, and basically there's an akene at the junction of each one of these crosses, and you could keep going, but I don't need that for the outside shape. Actually, I do, because I need it right here. Oh, I am going to have to draw them all. Think it through, Amy. Don't take shortcuts. So there's a seed sitting at each one of these. But what I really need them for is that the reason why I'm drawing them, because all of this is going to get erased and then colored over. The reason why I'm drawing them is because the outside of a strawberry is not this perfect little heart shape. There's going to be a divot right there, and then it's going to swell, and then there's a divot right there because I'm coming to where a seed pocket would be, and then there's a swell and a divot, and another divot, and a divot there. So anytime I'm coming to where this line intersects the outside of the berry, I know that there's going to be there's actually a recessed area right there. So the outside of the berry has to like swerve around that. Hope that makes sense. I'll put a swerve there. And if I don't get those swerves in there, it's just not going to look as realistic as it could. So see how now the outside of my berry has that weird and wonky kind of pattern to it. All right, so I want these guys to disappear entirely, and then I'll end up redrawing those seeds later. Easy peasy. But I needed that outside shape. And then I'm going to take some of my sticky tack and lighten the outside edge there. Oh, Betty's saying that she never knew there was a pattern. They don't last long enough to look that closely. But yes, they are kind of, I call it a Swiss dot pattern. And it's just, so you could go right down the center there, and then these guys are going to kind of like fan out this way. But yeah, a Swiss dot pattern is this pattern that we all know. Well, my shirt tonight. Hey, I wore the right shirt. This is a Swiss dot pattern on my shirt. It's that exact dot pattern going on. Yeah. So they're kind of in that, but they wrap around the berry. And so that's what I was doing with those funky wrapping diagonal lines, was I was getting those lines that wrap around the berry. So I am already happier with this because of that tape. So this might just be my new method. I don't draw a lot in notebooks. Most of the time when I'm drawing, it is on a loose sheet of Bristol. So, yeah, this is kind of unusual for me, but I thought it would be nice to have just a little sketchbook journal that has all the drawings from these Second Tuesday classes. So I'm lightening those pencil lines because Copic has a little bit of varnish in it. That's what keeps it from smearing when you touch it 3 days later. If it didn't have that varnish in there, you would be rubbing color off onto a lot of other things. And that varnish is just enough to set the colored pencil there. It's not going to be too bad because we're coloring with red, a lot of red tonight, and that's usually dark enough to hide these areas. But I don't want to take the chance. And if I was coloring something that was a very light color, so if I'm coloring like a white flower or something, you definitely want to get as much of your pencil lines as possible up, because even if you go over them with a light colored Copic, the shellac in there is going to bond the graphite to the paper and you will not be able to erase it afterwards. All right, so I'm going to do my leaves first, just get those out of the way, but that's going to also help me find the upper edge of my strawberry, because I'm a little bit afraid of taking the red up into the leaf, and then, you know, what's the point of me having drawn that leaf there? So I think I'm going to start with this leaf, because I can see that one. You can see the darks and the lights in that one rather nicely. All right, so I'm coming along, finding the bottom edge there. And I'm just looking for the area where that green looks dark and murky, not clean. That green goes right over the top of the violet. You'll never know it's there, and it looks like I used 2 green markers instead of 1 green and 1 purple. But Copic doesn't make that exact color that I just made. All right, so there we go. And by the way, just as a reminder, underneath my page here, I have a clear placemat that has been cut down. I used a corner chomper to round off those edges so that I wasn't poking myself. You want to be coloring on something that is non-porous. I know there's a lot of Copic tutorials out there and instructions telling you to put a sheet of scrap paper underneath your project as you color. And I think that makes blending so much harder than it has to be. You need every little bit of help to help you get this Rebel blend. But I mean, nobody wants to look like a blending idiot, and that's what the paper underneath your project does, because it absorbs solvent from your marker, from the back side of your project as you're coloring. The best blends are always going to happen when that paper stays wet as long as possible, because that allows the little colorant particles to get together. They dance a little bit, they mingle, and they can smooth themselves out, but they can't do that if the paper dries prematurely. So you want your paper to stay wet as long as possible, meaning don't put something absorbent down there, put something that is non-porous. I can't really say that I knew about this for years. And a lot of my students did have paper underneath their projects, and I never really realized it until like maybe 10 years ago. I bought a new desk, not the one that I'm working at now, but the one in my previous house. I had been coloring on a door, and I had set the door on top of file cabinets, and it was a beautiful big desk, but it was a door. So I covered it with fabric, and then I put a sheet of glass on top of it. I went and had a piece of glass cut and put on top of that. And I was like, oh, well, this is a glass surface. I'm just going to start coloring, you know, directly on top of it. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, man, I am a blending genius. My blends, I don't know what I'm doing different, but my blends are so good recently. It was the glass. It took me a while to figure it out, but right after that, I started moving all of my students to these non-porous surfaces. Instant improvement. And it took me a while to figure out what was happening and then reason through why it was happening. And I was realizing, oh, okay, it's because we're keeping the paper wet longer. So there's a little fold in that leaf right there. And so I'm just grabbing the fold and then where the color is dingy. I'm just going to do the fold first. finish that off with the 2-4. Whenever I'm working into the point, I always end in the point. I know your temptation is to start in the point because you don't want that leaf to go too far over, but you'll get a pointier point if you end with that upstroke on the end of your flick. Nancy says, I think that paper under the project thing got started because classes were in craft stores and the paper protected the table when the alcohol bled through. You're absolutely right, Nancy. When I was teaching in a scrapbooking store, it was a little private, it wasn't like Michael's or anything like that. And the owner had spent a lot of money on these beautiful self-healing cutting mats, and they were black, and they were just, the whole store, just was all in blacks and whites and stuff, and these were just the most beautiful little cutting mats. The problem was that my students, because I talk about doing things on non-porous surfaces, they were coloring directly on those non-porous cutting mats. And then the next day, a new class would come in, and after a while, she started getting complaints that people were getting, they were using products with alcohol in them, and that was rehydrating the Copic marker that was leaking through from my students' projects. So yeah, then I had to start staying after class and washing all the cutting mats before I left for the night. But it was worth it because their blends were so much better. So I gladly did it. So there's 2 leaves. Let's get that little fake stem that I kind of introduced. How do I want to do that? I'm trying to think that through. I don't want it super dark. I don't want it that dark because there is some sun shining in there. And I'm just going to do the rest of this stem the lighter G24 color. So that was YG67, and then this YG, or not YG, this is G24. There's no underpaint underneath this particular one because it's nice and sunny in there. So there's the stem. Oh, and Nancy says she definitely prefers coloring on glass versus a cutting mat. Yep, they were silky smooth cutting mats, so they were really nice. But like the one that I have here at home, my self-healing cutting mat, it's got like a texture to it, so I would never color on it either. Okay, so this is one of those cases where the dark thing is closer to us than the lighter thing. So I'm just kind of orienting my brain to get this darker side of this leaf. I think it's a color sloppy kind of night for me. I've been working on making my strokes looser, and apparently it just kicked in. The point of this is really dark. Ending there with the upstroke. And if something I say doesn't, like, I'm terrible, my head runs about 5 sentences ahead of my tongue. So if something that I've said doesn't make total sense, or you just want me to explain it a different way, pop that into the comment section, because I want you to understand what I'm doing. Not that this is rocket science, but if I say something wrong or mangle it, I don't mind heading back and revisiting the subject. I can remember teachers in school, slow down, you'll get it out, just slow down. think that's why I like to write articles so much and why I resisted doing YouTube for a long time, especially live YouTube, because I just feel like I say things better when I can edit the article and get it super precise. This is darker than I want it to be, so I think I'm going to end up taking some lighter pencil in there. Oop, I thought that was the purple. No problem. And by the way, one of the reasons why I can color with these big long strokes is because I am not mounting my arm to the table. So let me tilt this down just to, I wonder if you can see it. Okay, so I have arms on my chair here, but they are significantly lower than what they would normally be. And that allows me to move my shoulders and my arms. And the pivot point is kind of hard because this is a journal, but I pivot on the side of my pinky here. So a lot of colors, they lock their elbows into their body and then they mount their arm and their wrist onto the table. And I understand why you do that, because it makes you feel like you're nice and secure. But that security comes at a cost. It limits your stroke to just what your fingers can do, whereas you want to be coloring from the whole part of your body. The shoulder, the big joints. You want to color from your wrist if you can move from your fingers to your wrist, that's a bigger joint, or moving to your elbow, moving your shoulder. Just having more freedom of movement will really help you get longer strokes with the marker. And the thing about the longer strokes that you do with your elbow or your shoulder is that they're prettier strokes. They're just nice and swooping, whereas the things that you do with your fingers are a little bit cramped because you just don't have the freedom of movement. All right, there we go. That is the leaf stuff. So now I can see that border edge there. Now, I am still debating this in my head. What do I want to do? I'm going to move this down. I'm going to pull this one up too. I know I don't want to do just, the top one has just kind of like a red band through the center, and that's the hardest thing to do. So I'm trying to decide, do I want the Rebel Blend to be the yellowy stuff up here or the yellowy stuff down here? Because I've seen berries go both directions. I think usually don't they ripen last at the point? I think they run out of red as they get up here, but the green is actually usually down at the point. So I think I'm going to run red down this way. And that would make sense composition-wise. Then I don't have light, dark, light, dark. It's going to give me a more, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to run my Rebel Blend red, and then I'm going to fade at the point there. And I'm probably going to give myself more green at the point than I'm seeing in that berry up there, because I want to do more of that peach color that's in the middle. So I'm going to go dark red to peach to green at the point. We'll see. It could look like a little ugly strawberry when we're done, that, you know, you have to let it sit and ripen for a while. Deborah says, sometimes I feel like drawing and coloring is like rocket science. Yeah, well, sometimes I think I make it more complicated than it needs to be, but I'm shooting for certain effects that do require a little bit more thought than usual. Nancy is asking, do I color on a flat surface or an angled surface? For Copic, I'm almost always flat. When I'm drawing, I'm up at an angle, just a slight angle. I have an angled board that I customized my desk here with a recessed area. So this is actually lower than counter height, and then everything else is counter height. So it's like 6 inches lower, I think, over here. And this is exactly the size of the drawing board. So I have an angled drawing board that sits right in this area, and I will draw and sketch on that angled surface. And then I move to a flat surface for Copic, and it's because I'm constantly rotating like this. And when you're always rotating on an angled surface, your book keeps falling off, or your page keeps falling off. And I was like dog earing all the corners of my sheets of Bristol, and it's just because of the way the angled surface has like a bar going across the bottom of it. So I was losing things, dropping stuff. It was just clunky. So now I do the Copic flat, and then I move back to the angled surface for the colored pencil, because that pulls, when you're working at an angled surface, you tend to sit back in your chair more. So Copic people, we cramp up on things a little bit more, and then to finish it off, looking at it from a greater distance, then that really helps. And I do notice a difference. The projects that I sit back on always tend to be the ones that end up more photorealistic. It's not saying all the time, because I mess up sometimes, but my projects end up more realistic when I am constantly looking at them from a greater distance. When you're cramped up on things, you're focusing on the wrong parts of the project, and you're looking too closely at things. So I really do think it does help to move back. Just grabbing some of those stray pencil lines. Not that I need to erase them for the Copic or the pencil, but just, cleaning it up there. I don't love that stem that I just did, but we'll see if I can salvage it. All right, so dark red, moving down to the lighter red. And we've got the berry. Okay, so I'm going to have some desaturation up here, but then I've got a lot of desaturation over the side here, and I need to figure that out. So bear with me while I think out loud here. Okay, there is going to be, in the project, the shade kind of does that. And then it's pretty clean here. And then it really comes out down here. So I'm figuring out in the photo reference, these leaves are all kind of hanging over the berry part. So I've got to figure that where it's casting a shadow. Now, as I get down farther, I need to switch to a lighter violet, because my red color is going to start fading out about here and turn into these lighter colors. So I got to switch my underpaint. And this is where underpainting with Copic is more complicated than underpainting with paint, because with paint you would just thin the mixture down. You don't have to worry about it quite so much. But Copic is always so translucent that you kind of have to figure it out before you start. You need a game plan before you go into it. And I don't think people watching, like, you know, you watch a draw on color session on YouTube. I don't think people realize how much planning has to happen before the person sits down and colors. You don't realize how much planning that creator is doing before they turn the camera on, or even while the camera is running. And so then when you're coloring on your own, it doesn't flow as smoothly as those videos do. And it's because you're not inside that artist's head listening to them as they figure out, well, I can only take this down so far, and then I need to switch over to this other color. Artists are not geniuses. We have to think things through too, and we fail. So don't be so hard on yourself when you're doing something and it takes you 3 tries to get it right, because that's normal. What's not normal is, you know, you're used to taking classes where the instructor has colored it 3 or 4 times in a practice run and trying to get the project just right and trying to pick out just the best colors. Everything in a class is artificial because it has been so highly planned for you. But that's on purpose because we want you to be able to learn and succeed. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for you. But it also makes you think that coloring is actually easier than it is, and that the failure rate should be lower. I mean, I don't know about you, but when something doesn't work, I don't say, darn it, I didn't plan enough. No, I blame myself and say, well, goodness, you were stupid about this and that, and you should have known better. And so we blame ourselves when it's just we didn't know what we didn't know before we started. It's perfectly normal to have to start over on something, or to make a mistake and say, I needed a darker marker, or I used too dark of a marker. That happens to me a lot. I jump in with a marker that's way too dark sometimes, and there's just no way to fix that. So then you have to start over again. And that would never make it into one of my coloring videos. It would never make it into one of my classes, but it happens in real life. And I'm just kind of bringing that red down. Probably a little bit too much of that. Okay, so that was the 27, and this is the 14. I want to make sure I come all the way up and get everything up here nice and wet, and this is when I wish I had a giant Copic. If I just color in where the extension is, I'm going to have dry lines. So that's why I come all the way up here and make sure that everything's getting nice and juicy. This marker nib has squeaked from day one, so it's not that the marker is empty or that it needs to be refilled, because I just refilled it. It's just some marker nibs are squeakier than others, and my R14, I changed the nib on it around Christmas time, and it has not shut up since. All right, so I got all of that R27 wet. Now I can start bringing the color down a little bit. And I don't think I want to bring it down too much more, but that's probably good. Switching to the O2. Working fast so that I can hit this stuff while it's still wet. This is a squeaky one too. I've used our O2 a lot this couple of weeks, but I've been up on my tip doing some detail work with it. So I didn't realize this one was squeaky, but I just refilled this one too. I feel like I'm the squeaky marker queen right now. Honest, it's full. It really is. All right, R01. Another squeaker. It must be the paper. The squeaking is caused by friction, so it's gotta be the paper. This one didn't need to be refilled. The color is so light. There's a big jump between R01 and R02. So if you've taken my blending course, we do smaller images. When you start to color these larger images, it's normal for your technique to kind of just break down a bit because it's bigger and you have to do more movement. And you have to react to what's happening on the paper. All right, here we come with that YR31. Oh, I love this. That is pretty. Question is, how high do I want to take it? Because I like that bit of sunshine. I think I'm going to come up a little bit farther up on this side here. I don't want to come up so far that I damage the red, but I do want more sunshine up here. Put some little scraggly ends there on the end. And then here's that YG21. So on my website over at vanillaarts.com, if you're brand new to me, I think I do them on, do I do them on Tuesdays? Yeah, I do them on Tuesdays. So this morning, once a week, I release a underpainting swatch. Like it gives you the recipe. I look at a photo reference and I come up with a recipe to match what I see in the photo reference. So this morning it was hyacinth. I do them ahead of time, so it's a little hard to remember. This morning was a hyacinth, and so we were getting the blues and the purples from it. And then on Friday, I've been running a Rebel Blend series where I give you the recipe for a Rebel Blend, showing you the photo that it came from and showing how it can be used. Because often you are just given the recipe and then here's what the blend is supposed to look like. And I think that unless you're seeing how the blend can be used in real life, it's not as valuable. Like the recipe is interesting, but unless you see how it's being used to simulate something real looking, I just think that that's like the little key that's missing from somebody just handing you a list of really good recipes. So I've seen some good lists that list many of the markers that I would use, and it'll say like, you know, best BG blend, and somebody is blending BG49 into like a B99 and then B13 on the end of it. You know, like they're listing just the markers, but you don't see the colors. So I think the best recipes are always going to show you the numbers that were used. So you get the cap numbers, but then it shows you what those colors look like in a row. But then it also shows you where that color inspiration came from. Because, you know, if I don't tell you what this blend is for, what are the odds that you're going to figure out that this is amazing on strawberries if I don't show you the strawberry that it came from? So make sure as you're collecting those recipes that if you can, you note that information. So you're writing down the recipe and saying, this is a great recipe for strawberries, or this is a great recipe for ice cream cones, or this is perfect for frosting on a cake. Make sure that you're writing down what those circumstances are for, and then that way you're more likely to use that recipe again in the future. because I don't know about you, but I write down a lot of notes to myself to remind myself to remember this or remember that. And half the time I look at the note and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to remember this, but I don't know what I'm supposed to remember it for. So write down as much information about that blend as you're recording recipes and things into your notebook that you're keeping all your information in. So I'm holding the V25 right here, kind of debating with myself. I think I'm going to chicken out and do V22. What I want to do is just kind of enrich the cast shadows here so that they feel a little more important. Kelly says, detailed notes, Amy. But I'm in a hurry. I'm supposed to write down that important thing, but I'm in too much of a hurry. I gotta move on to the next thing. The worst is when I write down important at the top of it, and then I just have, nope, no idea. No idea why this was so important. Or you find like an old note. Is that important now? Or this is my struggle. All right, so I've got to get those seeds in there before I do too much damage to it. Because you notice I colored right over the skin, and that's because if I drew all of those little seeds, it would have been so hard to do this blend if you have to stop and work around the seed. Because every time you stop and color around something, so if I had tried to blend with this, watch what happens. So I'm coming down and I'm like, oops, my stroke needs to stop. And then my stroke can come down longer. Oh, but wait a minute, I can't have that jagged there. So then you come up and you've already given that now 2 coats of ink right there. It's already darker as you're going around the seed. And then you're like, okay, oops, I gotta stop. And now I can go longer again. But now I gotta come up here and give that an extra coat to get around the seed. And see how that interrupts the flow of your blend? Because you're constantly having to stop and doodle around one of those seeds. It is so much easier just to get that skin all out of the way. And then we use these wonderful new inventions, the acrylic markers. The brand that I'm using here is Primrosia, and I'm a little worried about this brand right now because it used to be these pens were all over Amazon for a while, and now people are telling me that they can't find them. I'm about to order a set of Sharpies and a set of Poscas. Basically what we want is acrylic paint pens, and I like them with this extra fine point to them. There's a little bubble on there. This looks far more fluorescent on camera than it does in real life. It's kind of a light olive green gold color, but it looks fluorescent. Ew, on looks fluorescent chartreuse on camera. All right, so those seeds. Now I got to retrace my steps and decide where they were. Looking. Now, it is totally possible to do these with a white Posca and then tint the Posca with a Copic marker to make them this color of green, but this just kind of saves me a step. So I was so excited when I saw this brand because they had lots of really organic colors. But now, and I'd never heard of the brand before, so I had to try them. But I like them, but I've never heard of the brand. And so it could just be one of those companies that, you know, it's right there for a while, but then it disappears. And these are extra fine with a nylon point to it. I know there's a lot of them now that have the brush point, and I think those are harder to work with. but you want something that's opaque, and the colors should be kind of natural. This is going to take me a while. Ooh, hope it's not running out there on me. Now, I did not count a cane. I didn't count the seeds. I didn't count the rows. I'm just kind of getting the same general idea, but I'm not being overly fussy about it. I've used the heck out of this color this week, so actually for the past couple of weeks. Oh, I just needed to get it flowing again. Thought maybe it was running out, but I just didn't get it primed enough. You don't all have to be brilliant, but I'm just doing a few here and there. All right, so there we go. Got those little seeds on there. Posca goes down to the points, or to 7mm, I think. Yes, and that's what this is. It's 0.7 millimeters is what it says on there. If you can find it, this is out of the Cottage Garden box, which is pink. They come in sets of 12. There is 11 colors in each box, and then a white, and it's the same white in all 4 sets. I really like them, but like I said, I'd never heard of this company. I have no idea if it's going to stick around very long. I would love it if, oh, by the way, Karen, the Pro brush markers, the people that make those, they've also got some acrylic sets out. So I need to look, like I was looking at the Creativation videos and writing down all the different companies that have acrylic markers, because, you know, I don't know if I can trust these guys. And the fact that they're disappearing from Amazon right now makes me worried. They're selling them in sets of 30 now. The Primrosea, that's a different one. Primrosea also makes a bullet point something or other, and then there was one that's water soluble. So we want the acrylic ones, and those are the ones that I was just on there yesterday and was having trouble finding the ones that I've been using. Let me get one of the boxes for you to look at. So this is the red box, and it's acrylic paint pens with the extra fine tip, and each box has like a name to it. So the red is Amore, and then the pink is Cottage Garden. The black box is the one that I never use. So it's got some metallics and brighter colors in there. All right, back with my purple pen. And I'm adding cast shadow to the side of each one of these little akene. About in the middle, then the cast shadow starts to be over the top. See, before it was on the right hand side, and now it's kind of over the top in, I think we're gonna have to switch to the 25 when I'm over the red. And now it's going to start to move off to the right hand side. So left hand side, center, right side. And it's just that each one of these little seedy things is sitting in a little pocket. So that's starting to push those in there and give us some good depth. It looks like Nancy mentioned the Karen ones. That's on my list. So is it Karen or Karen? Somebody told me it was Karen. It's one of those things that I have seen written a million times and never actually heard somebody from the company say it. Just going over it to make some of them a little bit darker. All right, so now I'm kind of looking at the darkness that's supposed to be coming up from the bottom. Just getting extra color over here. It's feeling pretty good to me so far. That's pretty good for a base layer, I think. Let's move to colored pencil. I have no idea if these are the right pencils. I just pulled out colors that made sense. So I've got some white over here. I won't use that till the very end. I've kind of got a matching berry color. This is crimson red. I have my pushing color, which is the Derwent purple. I pulled out lime peel just in case. I've got a carmine color here. And what is this? Salmon pink. That one just spoke to me. And then I was kind of looking at the shiny reflections, and I pulled out the sky blue and the gray lavender. But we're going to do a lot of pushing first. And I think I'm going to start up there with those leaves and just crank those out, get them out of the way. I might need, yeah, I think I'm going to grab cream. I'll reach down here into my colored pencils. Where are you, cream? And yellow. Cream, cream, cream. There we go. So I have Derwent Lightfast Purple as my push color, and then I have cream as my pull. push colors make things seem farther away. Or they add shade. So you're pushing something away, and then pull colors bring them closer to you. You know what? I want to do something. Let's see, what do I want to do it with? Grab R14 and R02. Bear with me while I experiment here. I want to give some little color on the points. Yeah. And then ease that out with the O2. Woohoo. Okay, I called the color right. Wasn't sure. You ever seen that on the point of a leaf where it just kind of picks up the color of the flower or the berry? I love it when that happens. And of course, the color that I'm making here is reddish green. It's not going to be the most gorgeous color if you just isolated it, but that looks really pretty. I think we have to get over the idea that every color has to look gorgeous just sitting by itself. I don't know about you, but that's really how I went through, and I bought a lot of, I've done it with paint, I've done it with Copics. You buy the pretty colors. You know, I go in with a list of colors that I know I need, but then I always end up with 3 more that just, you know, the spirit moves you. Those are pretty colors. And so we tend to gravitate towards the pretty colors, but then I find that I don't use them as often in my work because pretty colors often don't make the prettiest of things. It's those weird troll colors that often give you the most depth. All right, cap my markers again. All right, back with that dark purple and the cream. Now I think in some places we might actually be able to see the veins running through, like on this leaf. You can kind of see the veins. I'm not going to waste time doing that because sometimes when you put in too much detail, it starts to look a little grotesque is the word that we use in art. And it's overdone and too much detail, inappropriate detail, I guess. So I'm going to keep these leaves fairly simple. I just want them to feel dimensional. But there's like some hairs on the ends, like there's little white hairs there. It's a detail that I'm going to skip. Just simplify them to their basic shapes. I got that center vein going down the center there, but I'm not going to do all the little ziggy-zag veins coming off of it. There's a really dark side over here. Then there's a nice light edge over here. There's some brightness to that edge as well. I'm going to grab white because I see some specular light here. That's the more intense highlights. where it's reflecting light right back at our eyeballs. There's a bit of a lost edge over here, and I know in the photo reference there's another green leaf back there, but I've chosen not to draw that one, so I'm okay with this just kind of fading off into the background color. And now that I've added the white there, I can see that that needs to go brighter here, and this edge here as well. Right there. I'm going to take that brighter. But then it immediately goes dark. Okay, back here. Kind of making this part up. And that's just made up too, because this leaf doesn't even exist in real life. Okay, some of the darkest darks in the whole entire image are right here on this back side of this leaf. It's really super dark in there. And then there's quite a lot of dark coming from that point. Oh, it's my hand. I keep feeling something sticky, and it's my hand touching the glossy washi tape. I can probably take that off now. And there's some more serious dark right in there. I try not to use too much white because it has a definite cool flavor to it that often feels kind of inappropriate on leaves. but sometimes you need it just to capture those areas where the light is hitting something rather strongly. Not too bad. Yeah. I might think of something else to do with it, but I'm going to move on to the berry. Now there happens to be a seed right there, but that seed is in shadow because it's under, this leaf is casting that shadow on here. So that if I left that seed light and bright, it would look funny. Okay. Color isn't necessarily darker here, but it is muddy. And if there's a seed in my way, it has to go muddy too. Not sure how much photorealism I'm going to get out of this one because I'm feeling very loose tonight. Just kind of coloring in some bigger, not necessarily sloppy strokes, but just it feels good just to lay down the color and not worry so much about the precise details. And some days are like that. Most of these seeds over on this side are quite dark. They're in the shade. Okay, I need to start lightening up as I get into this area. I'm using the bottom berry as my photo reference, but my color is shifting from the bottom berry to the top berry, so I need to be a little more gentle with my colors. It looks a little too dark for me. Just using my sticky tack to lift it up just slightly. All right, so I'm going to switch over to this gray lavender. There are some highlights down here, but they're not super bright white or strong. Okay, I have to switch my vision to the other one. I'm going to avoid that end for right now and just do what I can see in the photo reference. Each one of these guys is sitting in this little divot hole kind of thing. I can't go down too much farther because I'm going to have to switch colors for the transition there. You can tell I'm thinking because I'm quiet. Really hard to think through something and plan it and narrate it for the audience. Just looking for patches of color. Sometimes I kind of blur my vision. It keeps you from focusing too much on the details. It just gives you blocks of color when you blur your vision. Lightening up my pressure as I'm getting down here towards this end of the berry. Here's where I'm kind of getting into no man's land, that it's not really in either photo reference. I had to make it harder on myself. Why did I do that? I don't know. Because it seemed more interesting. Just adding more red where I'm seeing more red in the photo reference. And it's such a minor change that I'm not even sure how much of it's showing up on camera. Let me see if this Deco Peach is the right color. Oh, it's not too bad. Each one of these little Achene seeds, it's spelled Achene, but a long time ago I had to look up how to pronounce it. Thank goodness for the internet. At a certain point, the berry Achene here start to get darker than the flesh. You might even need, let's see, Prussian green. Where are you? Carmine. Carmine is a light red. It's not pink. It has more of an orange, warmer flavor to it than pink does. Pink is usually made from magenta. So Carmine is a pencil that I frequently pull out just in case when I am working with reds and I need, you know, there's a chance that I'll need a lighter red. Okay, here's one of those conundrums because I'm looking for a chartreuse pencil, but the Prismacolor chartreuses tend to be a little on the transparent side, so I don't even know if this is going to do me any good. Nah, it's kind of pointless. It's going down, but doesn't help. Just need to knock back that impression just a little bit. It's a little too strong. Maybe if I... There we go. All right, so which one of these seeds? Some of these seeds definitely have to go red. What do I have here? Let's get some of the highlight in. This is Cloud Blue. I chose it because of the color, knowing that it is opaque. Let me get this off the page. I am just so proud of myself for having nice margins around this one. I think this is the first one that we've done that has nice margins around it. Okay, that's not sticking enough. Just kind of, I know it seems like I'm scribbling, but well, I am. But the shine in these areas is kind of scribbly. Okay, so I've got a tissue here. Just kind of dabbing it to knock back some of the color, because a pure white would be inappropriate. And I am rotating my tissue. I learned that the hard way, that if you keep dotting with the same part of the tissue, you can accidentally bring some moist white to the area that you don't want. Now the location of these little specular lights changes. So it's not even like I can say always do a C shape on the left-hand side. And my seeds don't exactly line up with the seeds that are in the photo reference because I've drawn it different. So I'm just kind of looking in the general area and then guessing what it would look like for my particular berry. We're getting there. Now, strawberries are things that I fiddle with for a long time before I ever call them done. And I usually do some pushes and then some pulls and then some pushes and then some pulls. And you kind of work back and forth because once you start to see the darks, then you see more darks, and then vice versa. Once you see the lights, you start to see more lights that are necessary in some of the other places. I'm going to quickly drop a cast shadow into this. Now's a great time to ask questions. Jackie says she's hungry. Looks like you could wring the moisture from the leaves. Oh, cool. I don't know if they're my best leaves ever, and they're missing something. I chose not to do all of the little jaggedy veins on them. maybe it needed it. I don't know. They're looking pretty plain, especially in comparison to the stuff we've got going on here. But again, this is something that, you know, you don't do it all in one sitting. It's pretty good for a short couple hour study, but 2-hour study? Yeah, that's about right. Remember, when you're doing these more intense kind of projects where you're really looking at the photo reference and picking up inspiration from it and then translating it into your own line drawing or the stamp, you know, that kind of mimics. You can find other strawberry stamps. I'm going to draw this for you, but if you have strawberry stamps or line art in your collection, you can easily apply some of these same techniques and concepts to strawberries in other positions. You know, strawberries that are perfectly heart-shaped or oblong ones. Because what we're doing here isn't married exactly to this one. But when you're doing these kind of longer studies where you are trying to match to a photo reference, they should take you longer. And I know that's frustrating to, well, card making tends to go faster, and I think it's because you've already spent so much time working on, you know, the design and the layout, and so the coloring tends to be quicker, like you rush through that a little bit more. Take your time. It's worth it, and you learn a lot when you're doing it. Okay, so this is that pencil that I always pull out for the base of my cast shadows. So it's Slate Gray 936. I figure this is touching the table right there, so the color is more intense, and then it's going to fade as we move away and then darken again as we're getting closer to the berry. If you take nothing else from this, just the cast shadow and the importance of the cast shadow, because it really does situate the object in a place. Otherwise, it's just kind of floating aimlessly in outer space. All right, so that was just the start of it. Now I'm grabbing that Derwent purple. And I use this as a replacement for the Prismacolor dark purple, which has some character flaws to it. Right where the strawberry touches the table, right down in there, there's going to be some intense darkness. There is no cast shadow in the photo reference, so I'm just working off of experience here. And the photographer flipped it on its side. So the photographer turned it that way, but I think it originally was sitting on a table because you get that bounced light coming back. All of those purple highlights down here, that would happen when the light is hitting the table and then bouncing back onto the strawberry. So I'm using this dark purple to enrich the shadow at the occlusion point where the object directly touches the surface. So see how it's dark here and then it gets lighter and then back over here. And I think it's totally worth it to spend your time working on the cast shadow because it just adds so much. All right, so light bounces off of the strawberry and then will bounce onto the table. I grabbed carmine. I think I'm gonna get the red instead. So the cast shadow cast by a strawberry is always going to have some red flavor to it. And the cast shadow cast by a leaf is always going to have some green to it. Shifting over to the carmine now where the strawberry is starting to get lighter. It's a crooked little thing, but it's not too bad. It's not a strong enough white. I'll go to my all pencil here. Ooh, that's what I was missing. Slight bit of rim light there on some of these. I can fiddle with this for like forever. So Prismacolor white will smear. And so it looks like I used a pink pencil in these areas, but it's actually the Prismacolor smushing some of that color around that I've applied previously. And no matter how much I add, I'm still letting the flavor of the Copic still show through because I don't want this to be 100% pencil. Yeah, now those leaves are really needing some help compared to the berry. There's all kinds of little itty bitty white lights. I don't know if there's any benefit to getting them in here because they're really not going to show over the yellowy area, but they're cool on the red berry. I'm trying to think of what else I can do. Is that too dark? No, that's about right. switch to red right here. Definitely complicated things by having that gradient. I'll just keep working at it. Jackie's asking, how's my headache? It's okay right now because I haven't been moving my head to the left or the right. As long as I stay moving straight forward. But I'm probably going to go collapse on the... I never got migraines before, but they've been happening more and more frequently. As long as I just don't move my head too much. And like, I tried looking directly to my right before, and that was killer. It's right in the back of my skull. I don't even know if that's where a migraine is supposed to take place at, but I just know it's not the average headache. Well, folks, that is pretty much what I would do with this. I can keep fiddling with it, but it's going to be like tiny incremental changes. I wasn't sure where I wanted to put the little white blossom, and I was really hesitant because the Easter egg project has that Easter egg and then there's a daisy right next to it, and I didn't want to mimic that. I wanted some kind of original placement for it. So it might appear in the digital stamp, but little white flowers are fairly easy to crank out. And I can post on the resource page. I'll have to recolor the new digital stamp. I always do that because when I move things around, it can change how I would color it. So I want to give you the most accurate version, because I know a lot of people look at the stamp, at my sample when they're coloring the stamp version. So when I recolor it, I'll definitely give you some pictures on that resource page, if I include that little blossom. I like the blossoms though, because they've got this little kind of primitive green berry in the center instead of, the normal button that they have. That berry just grows right out of the center of the flower, and it's there in the blossom. So it's kind of cool. But I just knew that it was going to turn it into a 4-hour live stream to have that berry there. So I downshifted. What do we think? I'm kind of creating, some of these areas originally had some purple in it, and then by taking the red over the top of it, it is darkening it even further, making a pseudo black. But it's a very rich color as opposed to if we had just pulled out a black colored pencil. The blacks you make are always much more interesting than black pencil or black marker. As a matter of fact, my most common, like when you see an area colored black by me, it's almost always C9 or C8 mixed with BG09 or B99. Sometimes I do the cool gray and a burgundy. Just separating some of these areas where one sepal is running into something else that's green. And that's just something that goes back to when I've been illustrating for technical guides, and you always want all the parts to look separate and distinct. So there we go. That's it. That's the berry. Thank you, Melissa. She said it's amazing. Cool. Yeah, got the cast shadow in there. Still not sure about the flower. Maybe over here. Or maybe I can do something tendrily. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Let's see. I do have, I think I showed you earlier, but I'll show you one more time. So this is the outside of a berry, and then the inside of the berry is something that we've done in a class, or it's a membership group that I have called Color Wonk. I don't do Patreon. I used to do Patreon, like I was one of their original signups, but I've since left Patreon and I do it all now on my own website and at Teachable. So we have a group called Color Wonk that we did the toast and the Nutella and the strawberries here. So like I said, this month has been full of berries, and then Friday's video will have berries in that as well. I had 2 more berry projects set for May, but I don't think I'm going to get to them all. But it was kind of berry palooza. So yeah, we've got lots of classes going on here all the time. 2 memberships. I've got workshops over at vanillaarts.com. This is probably worked out to probably an advanced level project. I classified the strawberries on toast as this is more intermediate because the individual parts are fairly easy. It all adds up to something more complicated, but it is more of an intermediate thing. This, because of the color run, kind of takes it up to an advanced level, but you could easily do it with just the plain red strawberry. And that would make it a little bit easier. That gradient kind of increases the complication on it, because then you have to start switching your underpaint. And the you saw me switch from shading this underside. Over here I was using the dark purple, and then I kind of had to switch over to the grade lavender in this area because that dark purple is just too strong for over here. So that all gets complicated as you're switching it around. But both of those berries are really good photo references. I was torn between which one to work from. They both have really good views of the actual little seeds. They don't have too much in the way of highlights. That's one thing that I was definitely looking for as I was looking for photo references, is that when the strawberry has like a really harsh light hitting the side from it, it is really hard to hold yourself back and not over whiten the project, and especially go crazy with like the Posca step. It's fun to highlight, and so our natural tendency is to do too much highlighting, more than is absolutely necessary, just because it's so much fun and you get carried away. But then when the photo reference also has a really strong highlight on it, it's really hard to keep it all under control. So when I'm looking for strawberry photo references, I want to make sure that there's not too harsh of a light hitting it. It's always best if you have like a dark side and a light side, because then you've got some interesting depth to play with. Don't be afraid to run the white pencil right up to the edge there and kind of let that edge kind of roll away and disappear from us. Jackie says she's going to have to settle for mango sorbet because she doesn't have any strawberry. I know, it's a little bit still early for strawberries here too. But I've been eating blueberries. I don't know where they're coming from, but blueberries have been really good recently. Linda says, absolutely beautiful. Now I'm craving a strawberry. It's so realistic. And Crystal says, fantastic. Looks like the strawberries at Costco. I love Costco. Callie says, impressive. My first live with you. So fun. Thank you. I am so flattered that people enjoy it. To me, it kind of makes me scratch my head and wonder why people like to watch other people color and ramble. But yeah, as long as I'm able to throw enough tips in there for you, and you know, when people have questions, I'm happy to answer those. We didn't get quite so many questions tonight, but that's fine. Maybe it's just because everybody was so busy watching the coloring. But yeah, next month, if you want to throw a whole bunch of coloring questions at me, that is fine too. I feel like I need to lighten this up just a little bit. It was just screaming out at me while I was talking. Don't know if it's going to make a ton of difference, but sometimes you just notice those things and it needs to be done. Here we go. Still not sure about that stem. Yay. Okay. So, next month, let me pull up my calendar. It's going to take a while just for that to boot up. And then, where'd you go, calendar? It opened. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we are looking at, this is May 14th, and it'll be the second Tuesday of the month. So the next draw in color will be June 11th. Next month's theme is tentatively, I'm kind of working with rainbows for all of the projects. Actually, this rainbow strawberry here could have gone right in there. So we'll be working with some more color gradients, I think. And hopefully I can find a nice project to work in with there. I've also been playing with some gold images. So maybe we'll do rainbows in July and gold in June. But both of those are topics that I kind of want to cover with most of my classes in the next couple of months. So metallic gold, not using metallic products, but creating that metallic look is definitely something that I want to cover, especially in one of these streams. And then also rainbows where you're just running one color into another, kind of building on that Rebel blend gradient kind of thing. Let's see, a couple more comments here. Oh, Maria says, hope I reach 10,000 subscribers soon. I know, I've been looking at that number. It's been so close. I have had my YouTube channel for like years now. I removed a whole bunch of really, really old coloring videos. So yeah, it looks like I should have a lot more subscribers than I actually do, but it sat dormant for several years. And it really is hard to start a channel back up. I think YouTube doesn't trust you when you've been dormant for a long time and then you come back. But I noticed, yeah, I'm flirting with that subscriber level. So crossing my fingers that that'll happen soon. Crystal says, let's see, great tips about the paper. I've been unpacking my old Copic supplies and I found a ream of Express It and lots of the, oh, you've got the Zeta sketchbooks too. Cool. I'm glad that you found them. There's nothing worse than good paper that just kind of sits there and goes to waste and kind of gets damaged or yellows over time. It's just like the biggest waste. It's a really sad thing when that happens. I have some paper out. When we moved here to this house 2 years ago, I packed up all of my art supplies and I've still got about 6 boxes that are sitting out in our storage shelves in the barn. And I need to go out there and rescue that stuff because I'm afraid that since it's been sitting for so long that maybe there's some damage or some mice that have gotten into it. So good for you for dragging those papers out. By the way, if people are enjoying working on the Zeta, it is also available in loose sheets of paper. I just found that a couple weeks ago. I was surfing on Blick for something else, and I was like, I don't know how many more pages I have left in this journal, but I might need to get another one soon. And I stumbled across the loose paper. So I think I'm going to order some of that at the same time. And sometimes loose paper acts or performs differently than the stuff that they put in the journals. I know they say that it's all the same, but we had this controversy with Fabriano Artistico a couple of years ago. I was one of those that was all for the idea that they were different. It felt different in the loose sheet than it did in the glue bound pads. So, yeah, glad you're pulling that paper out though. That's good. Let's see. Alice says she missed what I said that I put underneath when I'm coloring. Okay, so the first thing that I got was I tested a whole bunch of notebooks, and I didn't love the Arteza, or not, is it Arteza? No, it was the Ohuhu sketchbook. Didn't love the Ohuhu sketchbook paper, but I liked their little blotter sheet things. So then I went on Amazon and I just ordered some placemats. So this is a clear placemat. And I ordered 2 different brands, and I'll have to find the brand that I got because one was really thick and high quality for a placemat, and then the other set was 4 very flimsy ones. So I just cut it down, and then I used a corner chomper because the points were kind of sharp. So that's what I have underneath here. But I have also been known, I will pull it out right now. Where is it? I always have this nearby. So this is a scrapbook die cutting shim. I don't own a die cutter, but the shim plastic looked so appealing to me when I saw that at one of the students using it at in another class. Anyway, that also works, a die cutting shim. It can't have any like you can't have rolled it through a die cutter because that immediately starts to bend it. And the die metal does put little scratches and stuff in there that I don't think you want. But the die cutting plastic under there would work too. So I just ordered, I think this is no brand actually, through Amazon. And I got 3 of them. And I've been using these for quite a while. And they clean up really nicely with alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, so they don't stain. Crystal says she ordered the loose sheets of Zeta from Blick for Mother's Day. Cool. You are all set for paper then. Nancy is asking, have I tried the SMLT Bristol pad? I don't know what SMLT stands for. So I'm going to say no, I haven't, because I don't know what the abbreviation is. Strathmore. I don't know. I'm waiting for you to type that in there for me, Nancy. SMLT. Don't know. I've tried lots of different Bristols. Bristol is a process, not a brand. So it's not specific to one brand. And so because it's a process, it's not like highly secretive. It's a Bristol. It's a process where they use a certain type of fiber and then they treat it in a certain way and then they iron it all in the same way. So Bristol that I've found it really seems like it is consistent from brand to brand. So I haven't noticed a lot of difference between the brands of Bristol. I just know that Strathmore is one of those that's available in Joann's and Hobby Lobby, so it's easy for people to get their hands on. I really do like the Fabriano it's not Artistico. Fabriano Bristol XL, I think is, or no, it's Bristol Plus. So I like this too, but it doesn't come in the super large sheets. So the nice thing is I can get the Strathmore. It even comes in a roll. And I was thinking about ordering it in a roll. Oh, she says that SMLT is the brand name. I don't know. So I will have to look for it. SMLT art. Okay, I will have to look it up. And if it looks like it's a potential there, I will order it and test it out because I go through a lot of Bristol. So I don't mind finding, like, I would love to find like the absolute best Bristol ever. But like I said, it's a process. So they tend to be fairly consistent from brand to brand. I settled on the Strathmore because of its availability for everybody else, but also because it's available in the large sheets. Yeah, that Bristol Plus is really nice, but I've only seen it in the shorter pads, not the big ones. All right, folks, so I am going to cut it off here. We're at 2.5 hours, and this stream could go on forever if we start talking about paper. Nancy says she saw somebody using SMLT for Copics. So, okay, then I will definitely check it out. Send me a link if you can show me what the person was doing too, because sometimes I can tell just from looking at how somebody's used it, whether it is a good potential for my particular techniques and what I do with it. I tend to work the Bristol pretty hard. So if it's a fragile paper, I tend to make it pill. So yeah, I'm kind of rough with it. But that's what I do to get the blends that I like out of it. All right, folks, have a good evening. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to add questions or comments to the posts underneath. And, you know, I'm still a small enough channel that I check the comments probably every other day, and I answer everything because I want to be able to help you and answer questions when I bungle the explanation during the stream. So have a great evening, everybody. Looking forward to seeing some of your strawberries after we start coloring them as a group then. All right, so have a great evening. Bye, everybody.